And welcome back to the Brutally Honest Loan Officer Podcast. This is Derek Brown. I'm joined by my co-host, Stephen Brock. Say hi, Stephen.
Hello, everybody.
We are loan officers at the mortgage firm in Florida, and we have a little podcast where we talk about different loan products, interview a couple different people so far, but trying to just bring some product knowledge and basic knowledge to consumers, referral partners out there, and anybody interested in learning more about mortgages. What's up, man? How you doing? How was your weekend?
It was good. Busy Saturday, doing a lot of, I think we had like an event every couple hours, so it's what it felt like. And then, Sunday was Mother's Day, so we called
Happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there.
all the wonderful moms and to our wives who are mothers that basically take care of our kids and ourselves.
Yes. Yes. I experienced how much I appreciate my wife because she went to go see her mom this weekend. So I was left with our two kids alone, but we survived. They are alive. We made it.
They're alive, they're clean, and they're fed.
They were, yeah, yeah. But man, Tony, if you ever listen to this, I love you and I appreciate you. I don't think she listens to this. She doesn't listen to podcasts.
All right. Well, what are we talking about today? Let's get to it.
Investment properties. Yes, I feel like I have talked to 1,000 people over my career who want to buy investment properties, and then a lot do not. I would say I'm going to go ahead and say that almost every person that I know that is like extremely wealthy or like very high net worth owns investment properties. I don't know very many like super wealthy people that don't have a real estate portfolio. I don't know if that's true for you, Stephen, but just thinking about my sphere and the people that I know, a lot of the wealthy ones own investment properties.
Yeah, I will say that I don't want to say 100% because there's probably one that doesn't, but
right,
99.9% of the people that are wealthy that I know that they do own multiple properties besides their primary house.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think it's a huge, I mean, we all know it's a wealth builder, so it definitely builds in wealth in there. There's tax advantages to it too, but the biggest thing is parking their money somewhere and building wealth on it. And it's not, they have other avenues of approach, but a lot of people realize how much they can get into building wealth just through buying investment properties and almost not a ton of money out of pocket if you think about investing wise.
Right. Right.
If you would try to,
it's a lot of money out of pocket at once, is what it feels like. So if you're looking
yeah,
at buying a $300,000 house and you got to put 20% down, just down payment, you're typically going to start with 20% down. You're in our current market, you're most likely going to look at maybe a little bit more, depending on interest rates and stuff. But 20% down on 300,000, 60 grand right off the bat. That's just in down payment. But some people are like, oh, that's a lot of money. If you have it in your bank account and you're putting it as a down payment towards, equity in the rental property, you're just transferring from one account to another. You didn't lose it. You just locked it away somewhere else. So that's one way I like to look at it. But a lot of people are, hesitant because, it's a lot of money to spend kind of all at once. But it's usually a 20% minimum down payment. We've got some loan programs where you can put 15% down. It's just uglier because most people, when they're buying a rental property, they want to see cash flow. They want to see, the rental, the mortgage payment of the rental property and all other expenses less than what they're receiving in rent.
Yeah, and I think there's two different approaches, and it's as an investor, you could have it. Hey, I want to do one approach, which is I need X amount of dollars per month cash flow, or I will not buy it.
Right.
Some also look at it as the other way is I don't care about the monthly cash flow as long as it's paying for itself, or if it is going a little bit negative, it's not too much. But I'm looking at the long term that I'm going to hold it 3 to 5 years, and I'm going to make my chunk of money when I sell the property
Right.
with it. Now, saying this, it doesn't have to be, hey, I'm one way or the other at all times. It could be per property. You know, you could find something in a certain area that you're like, I know this is going to appreciate in value over the next 3 to 5 years tremendously. So I'm just going to, I don't care if I'm negative 100, 200 a month on it, because in the long term, I'm going to make a lot of money.
Right. Right.
Um,
Yeah. So paying a little bit more overtime, if you're going to be able to sell it later on and make a huge profit, fantastic. But you're also looking at very specific areas for that. That's probably not your normal, neighborhood. You might be looking at more of a tourist destination area, vacation resort area. So I know that where I'm at in Central Florida, we're pretty close to Disney and to the beaches. So there's a lot of properties that we've seen that have appreciated tremendously in those areas. So if you were renting it out and not having the cash flow, but later look to sell and you made, $250,000, good move probably, you know. But then you've also got to worry about capital gains, selling an investment property. What are you doing with that? Is it worth the capital gains? Are you going to try and do a 1031 exchange or what? So there's
yeah.
other things to consider too when selling.
And then how do you start off though? So we talked about just the money, having that down
Down
payment and the
payment.
closing costs and all that. But what is another way? Another way we can look at doing it is leveraging the house you currently live in, and you go buy another property as your primary. So you change the house, your primary property, into an investment property, and then go purchase another primary.
Right.
So that is one way. You see that often with people. One that doesn't, they don't have to do anything with the down payment. They already own the property, depending on the type of loan, mortgage they already have on it. They
Well,
might
yeah.
not even
And
have to switch the mortgage. They
so
might be
draw that
just fine.
out. Draw that out. You bought a house, you lived in it for, let's just say, 3 years. It was your nice little single family home.
Yep.
And then maybe, you had a child, started to outgrow it. So you want a bigger house. Instead of selling that and taking the equity and putting it towards down payment, a lot of people consider buying the next house with a little bit less down. If they can afford it, fantastic.
Yeah.
You just bought a new primary home, and then you're holding on to your old primary that's converting into an investment. The only thing you really should do is probably adjust your insurance.
Yeah,
Make sure that you
your
have.
insurance is going to change because you're not as a primary anymore. You need to switch it to.
That does not necessarily mean that it's going to go up.
Yeah.
Just going to change. You want to have the correct policy in place. But now, you might have positive cash flow there, or you might have seen what it's done, appreciating wise, and you want to hold on to it. The other situation is somebody might inherit a home. That's what happened to me. When my mom passed away, we inherited her house. We could have sold it, but instead we did a refinance, pulled a little bit of money out in order to fix it up. And then we rented it out for, a few years, and it was fantastic. My mom had paid down the mortgage balance, over years. Technically, if she hadn't refinanced and stuff, she could have had it paid off. But still, small mortgage balance. I think we owed $75,000 on it. So we rented it and had positive cash flow, and it was great. And then time came for us to sell it because we wanted to buy land. But my mom bought that house in 1986. So
Wow.
just, I mean, by the time when she had passed away and like I inherited it, I think it had been 30 years, small balance owed. I mean, it was great for us. And that's what led to us. Like, I'm a product of generational wealth just because of that. My mom bought a primary home, and then when I inherited it, we rented it out. Later on, sold it. We bought land. We built our dream home. Fantastic. So that's one way for, somebody to look at it as far as keeping properties, because we could have sold it initially, but renting it out for a couple of years helped us qualify for the first house we bought. And then also later on, it, provided the cost of the land that we bought outright. So, there's a lot of different ways to try and be savvy with investment properties, but one of the best decisions we made was not selling it,
Yeah,
holding on to it for a few years.
I think timing. It's not timing the market; it's time in the market that does that. that
Yep.
sit there and hold it on there. But that also brings us up to, okay, what about a fix and flip? Because most people get into investments and they're like, oh, I'm going to fix and flip these, and that's what I'm going to do. I have personally, have you ever done one yourself? Like,
Nope.
I
You're talking
have
about,
done,
have I originated a fix and
no,
flip
no,
loan?
have you purchased a fix or flip yourself?
No, I
Well,
don't have the
I
desire to do that.
It is definitely I am handy enough to do a lot of the work myself, but a lot of people think they're handy enough to do the work themselves, and that usually bites them. But on the fix and flip side, I mean, there are loans that we can do. They're hard money loans where usually you still gotta have skin in the game. They could be
Going to
anywhere
require
from
a pretty hefty down payment, most likely,
yep,
higher interest rates. You're looking at, like, it's supposed to be a short term situation.
yeah, where
You're
you're
talking about
borrow
6 months to a
money,
year or
yeah.
less. And otherwise, like, you could hit a balloon payment. Like, there's just, um,
Now you could be
it's not
fix
a
and flipping
pretty
it.
loan. It's not
It's not.
pretty.
It's not pretty at all. You could technically fix and flip it, fix it up, grab the property and then flip it into a rental.
Right.
And
You
you
would
use them
refinance it at the end.
correct.
Right.
So you would refinance out of that hard money loan into a regular 30-year investment property. Now you have more value. Sometimes you have enough value into it where if you held it long enough, you could, because of the repairs or whatever you did to it has created more value that you can technically pull cash out. And then I've seen people fix and flip a property, take cash out, turn into a rental, take cash out, and then go buy another property
Right.
with it. So there's one avenue of it, or you could just fix it, you flip it, and then you sell it right away, kind of thing.
Right.
Now you have to be careful on those, just budget wise, things like that. But also, you can only accept certain types of financing as the seller on it.
Right.
If you fix it, fix and flip it and you do it too quickly, FHA will not allow the owners to change within, you can't go under contract till the 91st day. So if it's too quick, you can't even
Right.
take an FHA loan.
You might limit the buyers that you have coming to the house. Um, I don't know. What's the best way to flip a property? Buy it cash.
That
Like,
is
if you
one.
have the ability to buy the house cash, you might be able to get it for even cheaper. But then you're going to want to use cash to finance the renovation and everything that you're doing to fix it, and then turn around and sell it. That's the easiest. Are there loans out there where you can finance some of the projects and stuff like that? Sure.
Yeah.
They're just, don't expect to get a great interest rate and super
There,
easy loan terms. That's all.
there is a lot of people that will do it. Either they don't have the cash to do it, so they're in their first one or two that they're doing, and they
Right.
know they're going to make some money off of it, but they know it's going to cost them some money too. So that's why they're doing those. And they're kind of just starting into that game, but eventually, or they don't want to spend all their cash on one property because they want to buy a couple of them and do it.
Start with
So
one. For one, if you want to, like, this is the other thing I've run into before, where I'm talking to somebody and they're like, I'm saving up money. I really want to have like an investment portfolio of rental houses and stuff like that. And they don't even own a primary. Like, buy your first house as a primary, do that, live in it for a year. Now you have an investment property. You could rent it out and go rent something if you wanted to.
yeah,
Like, so I always recommend starting with a primary. If you're not a homeowner yet, buying an investment property, I don't know. Um,
it's got to be a
yeah,
deal of a lifetime kind of thing.
there's
Seriously.
one person who made it make sense, and that's Grant Cardone. You're not Grant Cardone. Okay. And he disagrees with owning a primary house, which, if you talk to, like, almost every other millionaire in the world, they own the primary and
Yeah.
they own other properties. And a lot of them own them free and clear. He loves leveraging, the debt and stuff like that. Don't try to be Grant Cardone. Okay. But that's, I don't know. Fix and flip. It's out there. It could be great. I think it really depends on the house. I know in my area, even rundown houses that would be perfect for a fix and flip, the sellers want too much money.
Yeah.
So it's difficult. If that house
It's
is
definitely a hard market to do it right now. From
right.
anything that I see, I mean, you have to, if it's on the market, I feel like it's hard to do. Now, if you find some bank auction or you find somebody that
Correct.
just
Yeah.
wants to sell it, I've had that happen where lady was getting divorced and moving out of state, and she just like, hey, I gotta go in a week and a half. We bought
Right.
it cash, closed it, painted it, and had it back on the market in like a month, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
Right.
but I mean, it was completely off market.
Right.
That's so. Now, what
Um,
about short-term rentals? The other side of it,
Airbnb, Verbo, all those things that
yeah, is that the
went
only two?
ballistic 2 years ago, and then now they're like saturated the market a little bit. There's been some reports coming out that Airbnbs are like slowing, and some of them are struggling to, get the capacity they once had. So I think you got to be careful if that is your plan to do short-term rental. Um, you've got to be near some type of destination, I would think. Um, or I've had some people have great success with certain professions. Traveling nurses
Yeah,
have done short-term rentals. I've got some friends that own a couple Airbnbs. Their biggest customers are traveling nurses. Um, but the Airbnb option can be great.
I
If
think
you're
it
looking at like a
definitely it's
long,
location on those.
right, but a lot of people want to do it because if you think about like the house itself, let's just say you're like a nice little 3-2, and you could get $2,200 a month in long-term rent. So you sign a year lease with a tenant, $2,200 a month. If you Airbnb'd it for $100 a night, let's do some math. Let's
Do some math.
let's do some math. All right. So 15 days out of the month, 50% occupancy rate times $100 a night, you're at 1,500. So depending on what that mortgage payment is, if you had a $1,500 mortgage payment, you're breaking even with 50% occupancy. If you're doing $100 a night and you get 25 days a month, you're at 2,500. But what if you could, and that might be cheap. What if you could get $200 a night? So at 50% occupancy, you're at $3,000. So it all
Yeah,
comes down to what that mortgage payment's going to be. If you're wanting to buy an investment property, sometimes we can look at previous Airbnb history as far as maybe offsetting that mortgage. But a lot of times underwriters, like, we want to see stability. So if you're trying to offset having a lease, a year lease is one way to do it.
yeah, we're gonna usually, unless it's the proper. I mean, if you're refinancing an Airbnb, then you have the numbers to show it. But when
Easier,
you're
yeah.
trying to purchase one, either that one needs to be an Airbnb, or we're gonna go off a worst case scenario, which is a 12-month lease. That's the
Well, and then
lowest.
also, so like, what's your time worth? Let's just say you're going to do the Airbnb, and
Yeah,
your mortgage, like, or it's a house that, let's just say the mortgage is $1,000, and it's easily going to get the 50% occupancy rate at $100 a month. So you should be making $500 a month, right? Just 50% occupied. But what does that look like as far as cleaning up after every single person comes in? Getting it ready for the next tenant, all that stuff. Like, how much is your time worth? Because I don't want to deal with that. That's not me. So are you going to pay a management company?
yeah, that's where it gets real tricky real quick. But I like how you said like it was a huge thing to do, and then now it's biting people in the butt for it because of there's just so many out there. Unless you're
Right.
like, by you got Disney, so it's probably easier to get Airbnb, but I mean there's so many hotels too. But I mean over here we have the beach. You're closer to the beach, you can do pretty well. Or in like Wellington area, the equestrian season, people do it. But I also know a couple of people that do it down here is they with the equestrians is they know they're gonna come down and stay at the place.
Right.
So they're like, well, we're buying this for ourselves. Just when we're not here, we're Airbnb.
Right.
So you do have that kind of, hey, it is my secondary or my vacation home, and I'm going to Airbnb
What would
it
you
when
be
I'm not there.
spending on your vacation to pay for a hotel or whatever? That can be factored into the cost too. Dude, you know what? I saw an article that talked about Augusta when the Masters is there. There's
Oh,
some houses that are getting rented for 1 week for stupid amounts of money. Stupid. And I'm talking like large houses, 10-bedroom type of thing or whatever, for like 6 figures.
yeah, it's
What? Are you kidding
ridiculous.
me? That probably
Come,
pays the mortgage payment for the year in 1 week.
come here. There are people here that will leave in Wellington that will go, like if they have an option to stay somewhere else, we'll go stay somewhere else and rent their house out. I mean, if you're close enough to the polo grounds and the jump grounds and all that, that they're renting these places out 40, 50 grand a month. And sometimes these people will pay it all in advance. They'll pay it all in advance. And then they're only there, they'll pay for like 4 months in advance. And, or, sign that lease, a short-term lease for 4 months for them. And then we'll leave after 2.5 months. So there's a month and a half that they're not there. Now, can you go back into it? No, because they have a lease on it, but it's like
Right.
they really only rented it for like 2.5 months and paid 4 months worth.
That's wild. So again, it comes down to the location of the house.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's crazy. That blows my mind. I'd move out for a week. Are you kidding me? Go on vacation knowing that
Yeah, just go on a cruise for a week and then
just
come
don't
back.
burn my house down. Like, I mean, I guess that's the other risk, if you're renting it out for a year to a family that's living in your home as their primary, I think you're going to have a different mindset from the customer, from the
Yep.
renter. But
I've
been young and dumb before, and I've gone on vacation.
Insurance is
so.
cheaper on the 12-month rental because it's stability. When you go to Airbnb, it is a business that you are running out of that house, and now you need a
Right.
business insurance policy. And that can really, I think that's what's hurting or making a lot of people more hesitant on Airbnb is they're trying to make insurance claims, and people are like, that's not a rental property, that's not a 12-month lease rental property. Like that's what
Right.
you said you had. This is an Airbnb. This is a business, so you need a business policy.
Right.
And it's a whole different ballgame. That's a commercial policy then.
Yeah. So yeah, again, all about location. A great property in a bad location probably won't do you any favors. So you're always looking for, and let's go like if we're looking for long term, school zones, super important. The amenities, super important. What does the neighborhood have to offer? And then I mean just demand in general. You want some, like if you own an investment property where people want to be, it's a good chance that you'll be able to get like the top dollar that you want for renting and stuff like that. But I've talked to people who have literally, like, they live in a primary and they go rent a house specifically because of the school zone. And they have a child that is either going into high school, didn't get in, or for whatever reason, they're in a different, not zip code, but whatever, I forget what it is.
School district, yeah.
School district, or whatever.
Zone, yeah.
School zone. So they rent a property so that they can then show that as their primary, and then the child is then going to that school. A lot of times we see that with like young athletes needing to go to a certain school for to play a sport. So again, it comes down to location. So
yeah.
But it's a long game. Investment properties is a long game. It is typically not your get rich quick. Don't get me wrong. If you have figured out how to do fix and flips, if you're able to buy properties for super cheap and you can fix them up without breaking the bank and then sell, yes, there is the ability to make a ton of money. We've all seen it on HGTV. Congratulations to those people for making millions of dollars.
But how many shows are there? I don't know, like 6 or 7 people. Like there's not out of the whole entire nation that they're filming.
Right.
So it's not like it's a huge percentage of people doing it. You know, everyone that I have done is I've done it, and I have a kind of like a formula. Like if it doesn't make this much, because it's, to me, it's my quote unquote side. I mean, I haven't done one in a while, like 3 or 4 years, but it's like my side gig. Like it must make this percentage. Once I put the budget and what I think it's going to cost to do everything, which then, I have to definitely make that budget a little higher because you never know what's going to happen. But like, if it doesn't make that percentage, like I'll walk away. I don't need to make that money kind of thing with it, where you do have certain people that is their livelihood. So they will, their percentages are a little bit smaller than what I would want.
One other little piece of advice for anybody that wants to, or even people that currently own rental properties and investment properties, holding title in an LLC can be extremely beneficial. If the title is in your personal name, somebody gets injured, somebody wants to sue you, they could potentially go after your investment properties. If title is held in an LLC, you're protected. You have limited liability. So
I think you need, I'm not going to give out an attorney by it, but I think you need a two-person LLC to really protect yourself, or an umbrella policy onto it.
you can always add an umbrella if you want
Yeah.
an extra layer.
A two-person LLC basically means you can't go after, because you both own 100%. You can't go after either person because they technically own, each of them own 100% of the company. So they just dissolve the company and then get a new LLC. So you just,
Right.
if they sue, they only sue whatever that LLC owns, which is, the value of that house is whatever they can get from it. That's it.
Right.
Definitely put an LLC. Definitely talk to attorney and how to set it all up, how you should do that.
Right.
So we got financing. Now what do? We got the house, we financed it.
We started to touch on it, managing it.
That's the fun part.
Property. I can tell you right now, hindsight being 2020, when I had my investment property, I wish that I had hired a property management company. I have a friend that does property management, and I reached out to her because we were debating if we were to sell it or continue renting it. And that was before we found land to build on. And I had been renting it for way less than I should have, or that I could have.
Yeah.
But I knew the tenants, and I was being nice as a landlord to like friends and family that I knew. And I just killed myself. I could have, like, I think we were renting it for 1,500. She's like, "Oh, you should rent it for $1,000 more." Goof. That, like, and I was like, I've had it for 4 years. The amount of money I missed out on.
You're the
Because I
same
was being
tenant for
nice.
4 years?
Do what?
You're the same tenant for 4 years?
No. So it was a little family, and then the family moved, but the son rented it with a friend. And then later on, one friend moved out. The other friend that was there brought in a new friend. So almost same, but they were great, paid on time. I wasn't really too concerned about anything.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Couldn't jack up the rent, but yeah. And then just getting the call of like, hey, there's a water everywhere in the laundry room. And I'm thinking back, like, the laundry room's upstairs, water in the laundry room's bad. Oh my God. Like, and I don't know what to do. So like, I'm going to go over there with a wrench and everything. Like, I turned the water off at the street, like, and then I just had to call a plumber because I don't know what to do. But like, getting that call sucks.
Yeah.
However, if I had property management handling everything, they'd be collecting rent. They'd be getting that phone call. They'd have a 911 emergency line or whatever. So but it all comes down to what you would have to pay that property management company. So now we've got an, additional expense on top of, the mortgage, the insurance,
Even
HOA.
if they are accepting properties, there's a lot, the good ones sometimes are like, we're not accepting any more properties.
Right.
So they won't even manage your stuff at all for you. So
that's probably a good property manager if they do that.
Yeah. I've seen a
because
couple where
limits.
they were like, we're not taking anybody else on. So, wow. Like usually you would think like they would just take whoever on, but that could happen too. But yeah, property management company, I think, is key. My wife had a condo that, it was really close to us, so it was very easy to get to. And we knew enough people to, if something happened, like we knew the AC guy, we knew an electrician, we knew a plumber. So it's easy to kind of get it. But I mean, like, we have one tenant that I think within the year had like 3 or 4 calls that you're just like, well, I wish we had a property management company, because I was a property management company. So.
Right. Well, and like the thing with like the laundry room and water, like, I mean, I had to drop everything.
Yeah.
And I wanted to go see what was happening before I, call, like, is this like a real emergency, or like, did somebody just, I don't know. So, and I needed to call a plumber. So I don't know. It's, looking back, I wish I had a property management company. But it is what it is. Hindsight's 2020.
Yeah.
I know that for next time.
You sound a little better about it.
Well, I mean, it just a lot of money was left on the table, which nobody ever wants to hear that I could have easily rented it for more, but I like the people that were renting it. So it worked out great. And then, I mean, ultimately what we used it for, rental, great. And then when we sold it, we bought land. I mean, I'm not upset about all that.
Yeah, it all worked out in the end for you, I think. But um, what was it? We had talked about location on like the Airbnb. So location on property, we definitely off from that. But what we talked about financing, location,
And I'm
managing.
gonna I'm gonna bring it up too. I think we've touched on it before, but DSCR loans.
Yeah.
So we've talked about investor cash flow. Because one thing when we talk about financing, if you're going to buy an investment property, you now have to cover two mortgage payments. If you own a house and then you're going to buy an investment property, you have to now be able to afford both.
Even if you don't own a house, you got to show that you can pay your rent. What is your
Okay,
rent?
touche. Yeah, if
So you
you're
still
renting and you want to buy an investment property, you have to be able to show that you can afford your rent and mortgage payment for the investment property. And sometimes that's difficult. And if you don't have a lease in place, you don't have any rental history on your tax return, stuff like that. Like, how are you, going to be able to do it? And that's where the DSCR loan comes in sometimes. And we don't ask for any income documentation. It all comes down to your credit score and down payment that determines your interest rate. And then the idea of the DSCR, so debt service coverage ratio is what it stands for, or investor cash flow. They want to see a cash flowing property. So if your mortgage payment's 2,000 and market rent comes back at 2,200, great. You got positive cash flow of $200 a month. You most likely are going to have a loan. Now, if it's 2,000 to 2,000, we're at a 1-to-1 ratio, still good. If the mortgage payment is going to be 2,000 and the market rent is 1,800, does that mean you're dead in the water? Not necessarily. You can still move forward. It might change the terms a little bit as far as like you might have a little bit higher interest rate. So we can go by that. Now, if you know that market rent for the like long term would be 1,800, but you could rent it out doing Airbnb style and make $3,000 a month and you feel comfortable doing that, fantastic, go for it. But that's one we have done a lot more DSCR loans recently than we ever have.
yeah. I got a couple people in Naples that I mean
but it's also just the
well,
convenience of like not
once a month, maybe twice a month, he sends me a property. He's like, "Hey, can you run the numbers for this DSCR loan with it?
right.
This I want to do it on this one." And then he's like, okay, maybe, Then sometimes he's like, "Oh, yep, that'll work. Boom, let's go. Go buy it."
Yeah. So I mean it's just and we've got a couple self-employed borrowers that don't want to submit all their tax returns and stuff like that, or they know that they're not going to qualify because
Or
they make a good amount of money, but they write it all off. And that's
even
fine.
if you do, so Fannie and Freddie eventually will say you cannot buy any more investment properties
Yeah, you get limited
conventional route.
sometimes.
So like the guy that I know that I do his stuff in Naples, the customer I have over there, Fannie and Freddie will deny him every single time unless he goes and buys a primary. If you buy a primary, you're good. But when he owns, and when I first could talk to him, I think he owned 4 or 5. And sometimes the prop it would go through and be approved, but then he was just like, this is too much of a hassle. I'm like, we're gonna go investor cash flow. Like you
Right.
can buy as many as you want then.
My customer last month, we did a DSCR purchase. They owned 19 investment properties on top of their primary. No,
Yeah.
there was never a question as far as are these too many properties? Do they have too many investment property? Nope.
Mm.
Nope. Never even came up.
As long as their payments are good, that's all they care about. Like, oh,
Right.
all those 19 properties they were making their mortgages, good to
The
go.
only thing we've seen recently is our buyers, wanting to put 20% down, but just because of the numbers, they've ended up putting 25%. That's
Yeah,
what I've had on my loans. I don't know, like I can't say across the board and all DSCR loans, but
I
we have
think a lot
seen,
of them are 20 to get the numbers that they want is about 25%.
yeah, and that part of it's just because of taxes, insurance, property taxes, and homeowners insurance,
Yeah,
getting added to the mortgage payment and stuff like that. So, um, but yeah, it's a great solution for somebody that's wanting to purchase, looking for an easier route. It can be a little bit easier. So keep that in mind. But yeah, that's
but I
all.
think.
I think that's all I got for investment properties.
Well, what about it? We didn't even really talk about the exit strategy. I guess a little bit long term or your long term, short term. I think that's the biggest thing is when you're going to do an investment, what is your ultimate goal? It can switch per, it doesn't have to be, hey, I'm an investor and this is my mindset on every single house. It could be per house. Like I've had ones that I was like, okay, I would hold this. There's ones that I'm like, hey, I'm going to fix and flip and get out of here in 2 months. Having the exit strategy of what your percentage that you want to make.
What's your ROI?
Yep. Your return on investment. What do you want out of that property and stick to it. And then when you hit that number, that's when you're able to leave that property kind of thing.
Right.
So like you said, it's a long term, patience, research, finding the right areas, every area.
Outside of fix and flips, if you're looking at buying an investment property to rent, and if you're hoping that eventually you can sell it and make a boatload of money, you're playing a long game.
Yeah.
It's a long game. And that's even for somebody that's buying a house cash and going to rent it out. Fantastic. Go for it. You own an investment property free and clear. I support that. But if you're looking for an ROI, it takes time in the market. Don't get me wrong. There are some people that bought in 2008 and 9, they bought a 3-2 for 65 grand. And then now it's worth 300 and something thousand. Fantastic. A couple years after that, it was probably worth double, which is great. But there were very few people during that time period that could buy investment properties. Just saying.
I think so. For like 5 years. I started getting into investment probably like 2012, 2013. And it was still like
when all that was going on, I was in college and oblivious to what was really happening to the world and the economy.
Yeah.
Just being completely honest with you. Yeah. I did not know. No, but then I got into the mortgage business a little later, and people are talking about ninja loans and stuff that they used to do, like no income, no job, no assets. It's like, y'all are idiots. Yeah. No wonder we had a crazy crash.
That doesn't sound
everything I have to go through now to approve people.
But that wraps it up. I think we hit everything. How to kind of hit investment properties or buy them, what to look for, what to think about, the different types, financing wise, cash doesn't matter. Just thinking about what's kind of out there and how to actually manage your investment portfolio or how to get into it.
Yeah. If you're listening, and you have some questions about investment properties, feel free to reach out to us. For everybody listening, thank you for joining. This is the Brutally Honest Loan Officers Podcast. I'm Derick Brown.
And I'm Stephen Brock.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
See ya.